Hello, I'm a Christ follower.
And I'm a Christian.
Oh, hey, iPod, nice.
Oh, it's actually a J-Pod. Oh, it's actually a J-Pod. It only plays songs that talk about Jesus.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Comes with 77 gig of Christian music preloaded. It's safe for the whole family, and lots of great genres like contemporary Christian music, contemporary Christian light, easy listening contemporary Christian R&B, contemporary Christian country and western, and my new favorite, contemporary Christian rap, because I am down with the JC. Yeah, you know me.
Wow, that's quite a collection of gigs. I don't know, I guess I don't feel like I have to listen to Christian music all the time to be a follower of Jesus.
You mean you don't believe in Christian music?
Of course I believe in Christian music. I even have some of that stuff on my iPod.
Oh, well, what are you listening to these days?
Well, lately I've been listening to a lot of U2.
Oh, you too.
Yeah, me too.
But you... you too. I get it.
So this is week 3 of this 5-week series called Follow. And we're thinking about what it means to actually follow Jesus. And this morning, we're going to get really honest. Because whenever you enter into a contract, like a legal contract, some sort of a legal deal, you need to read the fine print, right? You need to know everything about the deal. You need to know what all of the ramifications of entering into that deal are going to be. And the nice thing about Jesus is, he didn't hide this stuff. I mean, he was very open and he was very direct about the downside of following. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the fine print of following Jesus. And if you're new to following Jesus, or you're sort of considering it as someone that's on the outside, then what we're going to talk about today is absolutely critical. You shouldn't really make another move until you know about this. And even if you've been following Jesus for a while, it's really important for us to be clear about this. Okay, now, before we get to the fine print, before we get to the downside of following Jesus, let me give you a very abbreviated sales pitch for Jesus. Are you ready? Okay. If you decide to follow Jesus, it will make a lot of areas of your life better, okay? You'll be a better father, you'll be a better mom, you'll be a better friend, you'll be a better employee, you'll be a better boss, you'll be a better neighbor, okay? If you follow Jesus, your life won't be empty, won't be hollow. He will give you insight into how to live a life that matters. And he will lead you into situations that give you an opportunity for impact. He'll enable you to leave an imprint on this world, to live your life in such a way that it actually matters. That when you're gone, it will have mattered that you lived. And you will find strength inside of you that you never knew was possible. There will be a peace and a stability to you that is really unexplainable. The world can be falling apart around you, and yet you're calm. In fact, Jesus even said, he said, if you obey what I teach, he said, then you're like a person who builds their house on a rock. And if you're a person who doesn't obey what I teach, then you're like a person who builds their house on the sand. Then when the storms come and the rain comes and the wind comes, if you built your house on the rock, you stand. If you built your house on the sand, you don't. And some of you, you've seen that. I mean, you've seen people that have faced extraordinary circumstances in their lives, and because they had this rock-solid faith foundation, they weathered the storm in a way that you're looking at it and you're going, that's miraculous. I don't know how they did that. So let me give you the very honest sales pitch for following Jesus. There are huge benefits, okay? Huge benefits to following Jesus. Today, what I want to do with the rest of our time, though, is give you the fine print. We're going to look at a warning that Jesus gave to the crowd. Because Jesus he's been doing all this really cool stuff. He's been feeding people and he's been healing people, and there have been all these miracles, and following Jesus has been exciting. And the crowd is starting to wonder, who is this guy? Like if it was a modern day crowd, they would be chanting back and forth, we love Jesus, yes we do. We love Jesus, so you know what I'm saying? Back and forth just all day long. And Peter would be up there and John would be up there and be going, See, at this point, everybody's happy. The whole thing is awesome. But in Mark chapter 8, Jesus puts a damper on the pep rally. And he pulls the disciples aside and he asks a very simple question, which launches into this massive discussion. Okay, this is Mark chapter 8, verses 27 to 33. It says, Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" And they replied, "Some say John the Baptist." Okay, like he just was beheaded and they think that he's been reincarnated into you. Some say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets. "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." And Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. Jesus says, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter says, "You are the Christ, you're the Messiah." The Messiah was a Hebrew word that just meant like the chosen one, the one that God had prepared. And the Hebrew scriptures talked about this. The Greek equivalent for that is Christ. Okay? Some of you thought Christ was his last name, like Jesus Christ. No, it's a title. Okay, he's the Christ. And Peter says, "You are the one. You are the Christ." And Jesus says, "Exactly. Shh. Don't tell anybody." But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, I'm in the wrong spot. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man, and here's where the whole thing takes a turn. "Who do you think that I am? Who do you say that I am? You're the one that God promised, and this has been awesome, and there's been all these miracles, and all this stuff has been happening." Jesus is saying, "Yes. Shh, don't tell anybody." He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Peter's like, "Jesus, you got this wrong, You're not going to die. You can't die. What is this nonsense that you're talking about? Do you remember the other day when we were out on the lake and there was a storm and we were all going to die and you just stood up and said, 'Winds, be still,' and they did? Who's going to kill you? Who's going to stop you? You have power over all things, over nature. I mean, what could possibly go wrong here?" So Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." So Jesus turns right around and he rebukes the rebuker. He says, "Peter, let's just be honest. Let's just get right down to it. There have been some really nice benefits for you in following me, haven't there? People are starting to know your name. You're like, 'Peter.'" He's like, "Yeah." You're getting kind of famous. And you've been able to see all of these miracles, and it's been really good, right? But Peter, you're acting like a consumer, not a follower. A consumer is in this for what they can get out of it. I want you to be my follower. Which means that when I lead you somewhere that you might not want to go, somewhere where it might cost you something, I want to know that you're still with me. And then Jesus decides that he's going to make this more of a public conversation. So he gets out of the little huddle that he's in with the disciples, and he turns, and now he addresses this huge crowd that's been following just a little ways behind them. And he starts talking about hard things. He starts talking about what's realistically facing them. And he lays out the fine print of following. Verse 34. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Okay, now we have to understand, Jesus was standing eyeball to eyeball with real people. And because of what was literally about to happen to them, what Jesus tells them for them is very, very literal. Because he's about to go to Jerusalem, and he's about to be arrested and tried and crucified. And for those that would associate themselves closely with him, there's a very, very real risk of them also being arrested and crucified. So he's just warning them up front. This is the deal. Now here's the good news for you and me. Should I move over or no? That was awesome. Here's the good news for you and me. You will not be crucified if you follow Jesus. No matter how closely you follow Jesus, you're not going to be arrested and hung on a cross. Okay, now you may have to make some tough decisions, and you will definitely have to make sacrifices, but nothing like the crowd was facing that day. And so what's true and what's real for followers, really, in any generation is this. If we're going to follow Jesus, doesn't mean we're going to be crucified. If we're going to follow Jesus, we're going to have to deny ourselves. We're going to have to deny ourselves. Now that's not like some big, scary theological deal. You do this all the time. Okay, you've done this at the table. Would you like to order some dessert? Well, yeah, but no, I'm going to deny myself. Okay, that's all it is. To deny myself simply means that I say no to me. That means that there's something that I want, but I don't think it's ultimately the best thing, and so I say no to me. I have two options, and one of them would be fun, and it would be exciting, or it would be easier, but the other one would be better. Okay, so I'm going to say no to me. Now, several years ago, I saw the most incredible picture of what this looks like in real life. I was watching Oprah. And you got to give me a little grace. I was in high school, and I dated this girl that liked Oprah. So I liked Oprah. And so this was 40 years ago. Anyway, there had been this really powerful study done with kids on self-denial. And so Oprah was so wowed by this, or her producer was, or somebody was, that they did a whole show on this thing. And so I'm watching Oprah, and it was the most fascinating thing. These psychologists would do this with several. They would sit a kid at a table, and they would put a marshmallow there, and they would say, okay, here's a marshmallow, and you can eat it if you want. Right now, you can just eat it. Or if you don't eat it and you wait, I'm going to go away for a little while, and when I come back, then you can have two. Okay? And they would leave the kid there, sitting there at the table like a 4 or 5-year-old, sitting there with the marshmallow, and the cameras would be rolling, and the person would leave, and there's the kid with this marshmallow. I'm telling you, it was awesome. Some of the kids would just there were a couple of kids that were just yeah, I can have two later, whatever. And they just chowed the marshmallow. There's other kids that would pick it up, and they would look at it, and they'd roll it around their face. There's other kids that would just be sitting there, and they'd look around and look at the door where the person went out of, and they'd pick it up and lick it real quick and put it back. There's other little kids that would take it, and they would pick a little piece off of it like that and then turn it so that when the person walked back in, they couldn't see it was gone. And there were other kids that would just sit there with the marshmallow and they would look at it, and they're just gripped. They're just looking at this thing, and they're tapping on the table and looking at the marshmallow, and then they try not to think about it. It was awesome. It was the coolest thing ever. It was epic. So I went online this last week to see if I could get that episode to show you guys, and I didn't get to it, but there are replicas of this study everywhere. Some of you are nodding your heads. Have some of you seen what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay, several of you have. But I did find one that I thought was fantastic, and so this is about 3.5 minutes long. Watch this. This is awesome.
Okay, scoot up. Okay, so here's the deal. There's a marshmallow. You can either wait, and I'll bring you back another one, so you can have two, or you can eat it now. So you can eat it now, or you can wait, and I'll bring you back two. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I have one marshmallow for each of you.
Okay.
One.
Don't eat it?
And here's the deal. You can either eat it now, or you can wait till I get back, and you can have two. Okay?
Okay.
So eat it now, or wait till I get back, and you can have two. And I'll be back in a little
If we wait, you'll give us two?
Yep, if you wait, you get two. Or you can eat it now, whichever you want. Okay? I'll be back in a little bit.
We're gonna wait. I wonder what we're gonna do. They're gonna eat it? If I want to eat one thing. But we're still not gonna get two. But if you wait until she gets back, she'll give you two. She still won't give you two because you ate it. Some of it. And I didn't eat a single bite of mine. So don't show her, okay?
There you go. Okay, so I have this marshmallow, and you can eat it now, or if you wait a little bit, I'll bring back two for you to eat, okay? How you doing, Sam? Good. Good. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and I haven't found a marshmallow yet, so I'm gonna look for some more, but you stay here, and if you haven't eaten that one, I'll bring you back another one, okay? I'll be right back.
Waiting. Well, you're eating, not waiting for her to get back. We still ate some of it, so she's still not gonna get the joke. Let's say Richard.
Here I come.
There,
Oh, what happened?
she ate her.
Oh, okay. Hi, Hunter, you waited. You get two. Good job. You can eat it. You can eat them now.
So, denying yourself is saying, no to something that you want for now, for a better alternative. And sometimes it's like marshmallows, and sometimes it's mud pie, and sometimes it's cheesecake, and sometimes it's a lot more than that. And Jesus says, like, let's be clear, to follow me means denying yourself. There will come moments where what I want for you is different from what you want for you. And in those moments, you will need to decide whether you're a consumer or a follower. And Jesus said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. So Jesus looks at this crowd, this "we love Jesus, yes we do" crowd, and he says, you need to understand where all of this might lead. I don't want to pull any punches, and I don't want you to be surprised. If you're going to follow me from this point forward, you better get your mind around the idea that some of you may need to take up a cross. Okay, now, when we think cross, like in our culture, we usually think like jewelry. You know, we think of a beautiful picture that we used to see at Grandma's house. You know, maybe we think of the red cross. I mean, for most of us, the cross is an image of peace and compassion. The cross conjures up for us warm feelings. You and I have never seen anyone executed on a cross. You know, we've never heard the sounds. We've never smelled the smells. We've never seen the agony. We've never listened to a person that is being crucified screaming. Now, I could try to create that for you. And I could actually paint a pretty graphic description of what happens to a person's body when they're being crucified. And to tell you the truth, some of you might feel like you need to leave the room. I did that once, and I won't ever do that again because it was too much for people. In a regular church service, it's too much. People can't handle that. And see, for us, because the image of the cross for us is like, it's like glorified and it's romanticized. For the crowd, now you have to transport yourself, because for the crowd standing in front of Jesus that day, it was not. They had seen this done many times. The Romans crucified people in public all the time. They did it to terrify conquered peoples into submission, to send a message. This is what happens to you if you dare go against Rome, okay? And it was a horrible way to die, and it was supposed to be that. It was supposed to terrify people. Jesus says, you need to understand. If you're going to follow me from this point forward, it may cost you something. You're going to have to deny yourself and take up your cross. Okay, so now you have to imagine that some of the people in the crowd at this point are like, you know what, Jesus? I think this is where I say bye-bye. This has been great. Like the whole miracle thing, awesome. And you healed my mother-in-law, and I was a little conflicted about that, but it was a miracle and everything, and it was pretty cool. And then you fed everybody, and I hear that you can walk on water, and I'd love to hang around long enough to see that, but now you're telling me that it's going to cost me something. I'm not so sure that following you is going to be worth it from now on. And we've all wrestled with this, right? I mean, if you've ever contemplated being a Christ follower, you've wrestled with this. I mean, if I decide to follow Jesus, it might cost me something. And the bottom line is, I'm just not sure that I want to deny myself. Like if you're a student, or you're in your early 20s, or like you're in high school, or you're a college student, you've got your whole life ahead of you. And so maybe you've thought well, how about I start following Jesus in my 60s? Because I mean, how much trouble can you get into after you're 60 anyway? There's nothing fun after that anyway. And that's a logical thought. I mean, we've all thought about this, right? We've considered it. I mean, is following Jesus really going to be worth it? And so Jesus has just told them, you're going to follow me, you're going to have to take up your cross, deny yourself. And he knows what the crowd is wondering now. He knows what the crowd is thinking. He gets it. And so he looks at the crowd and he addresses this tension that everybody's feeling. He's like, before you leave, before you just walk away, hear me out. Before you decide to stop following, let me put this invitation out there to you to follow me into a broader context. And these are some powerful words. Okay, he carries on, Mark chapter 8, verses 35 to 38. It says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man, which is him, will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels." And Jesus is referencing Judgment Day. When he comes back with the angels, when he comes back to judge, he's talking about eternal things. Like this life versus forever. And so he just says to the crowd, hey, I know this is hard, but I just want you to think it through. Now, if you're a person that hears this and you think, well, I don't really even believe there is an afterlife. I don't really believe there's anything after this life. I don't believe that there's anything really such as like a soul or heaven or an afterlife or any of that. You know what? I just think that when you die, you die. It's like, and that's it. Well, I have to tell you, that's not really a shocking view of things at all. Most of the people that Jesus was talking to that day, like people that lived and worshiped and studied and all of that in the Jewish community of Israel at that time, they probably believed that as well. Most of them did. There were two major religious groups in the Jewish community in Jesus' day. There were the Pharisees, okay, and we talk about those guys a lot. They get a lot of press. But there was also this group called the Sadducees. And they had a very different view. The two groups had very different views about death. The Sadducees believed that once you die, that's it. Okay, you're here for the pleasure of God, you're here to worship God, and then once you die, that's it. They're like, there's no afterlife. And that's why they were sad, you see? A little pastor's joke. So if you're ever wondering which group is which, there you go, right there. You'll never forget. So the Sadducees believed that there's no such thing as resurrection. There's no life after death. And the reason that they believed that is because if you look at the Old Testament, like all of the part of the Bible that came before Jesus, you really don't find anything in there about heaven. And that might be shocking. But you really don't. There's nothing in there about how you go to heaven, or here's what it's like in heaven, or here's what happens in the afterlife. The Old Testament was written as kind of as if once you die, that's it. But then there were a group of Jewish people in Jesus' day that included the Pharisees that came along and they said, no, wait. Okay, we think there's an afterlife. And Jesus came along then and said, you're right, there is. There's a kingdom called heaven. Okay, it's the kingdom of God. And it's a place where things are as God wants them to be. It's a place where the broken stuff is healed. And it's life as it's supposed to be. There's going to be no more mourning, no crying, no pain. None of that junk will be woven into that experience. And it will last forever. And no one can take it from you. But the only way there is to follow me. So basically, Jesus says, I'm asking you to weigh the cost. Even if following me leads to physical death, it'll still be worth it. Because you think about it, even if you gained everything that you want in this life, all the success, all the fortune, all the fame, all of whatever lifestyle it is that you want, would it really, really, really be worth trading your soul? I mean, what in this world could possibly be worth your soul? So I'm inviting you, follow me. But I'm also warning you. Sometimes it's going to be hard. Sometimes you're going to have to deny yourself. But I'm telling you, I'm promising you, it's worth it. It's going to be worth it. Will you trust me? And that's what it comes down to. I mean, it comes down to the marshmallows. Will we trust Jesus enough to deny ourselves for the moment? Now, this is a real struggle. I mean, let's just be honest. This is a struggle that every person faces that's even considering following Jesus. And just so you know, it doesn't go away. You could be following Jesus for 40, 50, 60 years, and the tension is still there. This is not a decision that you just make once and for all. Because you keep facing situations where what you want and what he wants are different. And then you have to decide all over again, will I follow? And Jesus, I don't know if you've noticed this, for those of you that have followed Jesus for a while, he has this nagging habit of continually calling us out. Once we get to a comfortable place in our faith, he starts asking us to do something new, to do something hard, something that will take us right out of our comfort zone again. And it's in those moments that we find out, am I a consumer or am I a follower? Now, Jesus says something, I want to come back to this because maybe we read through this and you were like, whoa. He says something kind of scary in verse 38. He says, if anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory and with the holy angels. Now, that should get our attention, I think. But I want to make sure that it doesn't have the wrong effect. Because Jesus doesn't want us living in constant fear that he's going to reject us. The problem is, all of us are consumers sometimes. All of us fall short of following Jesus sometimes. Sometimes we know what we need to do and we just don't. We want one thing, Jesus wants another thing, and we make the wrong choice sometimes. This is reality. This is the way it is for everybody. You think about the guy that was front and center when Jesus started this whole conversation. The guy who had said, you're the Messiah, you're the Christ, but you can't go to the cross. He's just sitting right there. There's Peter. And Peter said to Jesus one time, I'll never be ashamed of you, right? Peter looked Jesus right in the eye when Jesus was giving this talk about how they were all gonna flee. And Peter said, they might all go. Okay, these guys are all losers, but I'm your guy. I will never be ashamed of you. I will never deny you. I will never, ever abandon you. And you know what? When he said that, I think he meant it. But then all hell broke loose. And Jesus was arrested and he was beaten, and people started accusing the disciples of being associated with Jesus, and it became like a life-threatening deal, and they started running away and they started hiding, and Peter denied all of it. He denied all of it 3 times, and if you remember, one time it was like a middle school girl. She's like, hey, you're one of them. You're like a Jesus guy. And Peter says, no way, I'm not. I don't know the man. Now, you know what Jesus did after he was resurrected when he finally locked eyes with Peter? He kicked his butt right out of that group. Actually, he didn't. He said, Peter, I forgive you. Now, I'm going to put you in charge of the whole operation, so don't do that anymore. And Peter was never the same after that. He taught about Jesus until it landed him in prison. And he eventually was crucified himself. And he met the grace of Jesus and the power of Jesus, and it changed him. And for him, the words, take up your cross and follow me, were very, very literal. Now, so it isn't that we have to get this right all the time. It's that when we get it wrong, we go to Jesus and we receive grace. And then we re-engage in following him. Okay, a second misunderstanding that we get about this whole thing is that it's all about heaven. That really what we're talking about here is just the benefits are in heaven. Now, Jesus does say that no matter what happens in this life, Okay, if we trust and if we follow, it will be worth it. And so and for many people around the globe in different generations and in different cultures, it has meant this. He's saying, so even if it leads to physical death, it's worth it. Okay, but that does not mean in any way that the only benefit of denying ourselves is in heaven. That like every time we say no to ourselves, we should think, look at that. Another crown in my, the jewel in my crown. Because it isn't just about that. It isn't just about life after death. It's also about life now. And what Jesus is laying out for us in this whole scenario is the great paradox. That the only way that any of us can come fully alive is to die. Is to let go. To let go of our grasp on certain things. Jesus says, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. In other words, the more that we let go of what it is that we want, the more that we die to ourselves, the more Jesus will bring us to life. And this was an idea that he tried to pound into the consciousness of his closest followers. Like in another setting, Jesus said it this way. He said, very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Jesus says that when we die to ourselves, that's when we come alive. This last summer, Pastor Chris gave a great illustration. He was talking about how to catch a monkey. And that's really random. But it's cool. He said that you get like a wooden box or a cage or something, and then you cut a little hole in it that's like big enough for the monkey's hand to fit inside of it, but just barely big enough. And then you put like fruit or something that the monkey would want inside of it. And what happens is the monkey reaches in and grabs hold of it, but when they grab a hold of the item that's in there, their hand gets bigger and the item, they can't get their hand out. But when they want something, they want it. Okay? So they'll hold on to it. They'll hold on to it and they'll rip and they'll pull until their flesh starts getting raw. They will not let go of this thing. They'll hold on to it even if it leads to their capture. Now, I heard the same idea about like raccoons years ago, and I can't remember. I didn't want to do all the research, but I think it was in the book Where the Red Fern Grows. I don't know how many of you have read that, but anyway, and if I remember the story right from when I was a kid, from when I read Where the Red Fern Grows, raccoons love shiny things. And so it's the same idea. You put a shiny thing in a box, and they reach in and they grab it, and then they can't get their hand out, but they won't let go, and so they will hold on to that sucker to the point of capture. Like, they could let it go. They could just let that thing go and be on their way and go play with all the other raccoons and play raccoon games. But they won't. They will hold on to that thing, and they will cling onto that thing to their death. Now, I have to tell you, I don't know if any of that is actually true. It's a great analogy. I don't know if monkeys and raccoons actually do that. But what I do know is that I do. I will cling to stuff that I'm sure I have to have. Stuff that's keeping me from life. And I've done it over and over and over and over. And I've discovered this like constant tension in my life, where Jesus is saying, okay, just let it go and follow me. I'm trying to free you. Just let it go and follow me. And I'm like, oh, I can't. It's like, no, let it go and follow me. There's freedom and there's life. But what happens is that when I listen to that voice long enough and I start to trust, and when I eventually do let go and I follow where he leads, I will tell you that over and over and over again, that's where I come alive. Like for me, deciding in the early years to let go of my commitment to drinking and chasing girls, letting go of an unhealthy relationship that I had with a girlfriend, and then eventually finding a girl that loves Jesus and marrying her and letting her challenge me like every day. Letting go of my pursuit of a very high-paying, prestigious career and deciding instead to do this. But letting go of my personal comfort to go into who knows what, into Haiti, in Haiti. These are the kinds of things for me that have led to life. And I know that. And yet every time I'm facing a new decision and this comes up for me again, I want to cling. Like, oh, I like this. I want to hold on to what's in the box because I'm just not sure that I can let go this time. And what's happening is Jesus is saying to every one of us, okay, if you will die to yourself, if you will deny yourself and you'll follow me, if you will let go of what's in the box, I'll set you free and I'll show you life. I'll make you come alive in ways that you could never imagine, but you're going to have to trust me and you're going to have to let go and you're going to have to follow. And Jesus is saying to you, and he's saying to me, let go and follow. Here's the deal. Okay, the grace of God is free. It costs you nothing. You don't do anything to earn it because Jesus laid down his life for you and he laid it down for me. His death paid all of our debts. And so God's grace is a free gift. But you need to know that following Jesus will eventually cost you something. And Jesus wasn't shy about this. He laid out the fine print kind of in bold letters at the very beginning. Now, the good news is you don't really need to sit around worrying about this. Because when the moment comes for you, you'll know. I mean, like maybe you've started following Jesus and you're doing the best that you know to do it and to try to figure it out, and it's kind of new for you and you don't know a lot, but you're trying to figure it out. Hey, look, when the moment comes for you, you're going to know. I mean, it'll be like, okay, this is it. This is what they're talking about. This is what Jesus was talking about. This is what Pastor Jason was talking about. This is one of those, I can't say yes to both me and Jesus. I'm going to have to say no to one of us. And as hard as this is, you're going to say to yourself, this is actually kind of cool because now I'm about to find out whose I really am. And you're going to know. And you know what I think? I think you're going to do the right thing. I think it'll be hard, and I think you'll struggle. But I think that eventually you're going to do the right thing. Because if you keep following and you keep listening to the voice of Jesus, something happens. Something happens. You start to trust him, and it might shock you and it might surprise you, but if you keep following and you keep listening, Jesus will somehow enable you to take risks and to let go. And he'll enable you to do it in ways that you can't even imagine right now. I'm going to tell you right up front, you are capable of way more than you think you are. And so if you're sitting here and you think, you know what, I'm not really sure, what denying myself looks like specifically right now, that's okay. I just want to tell you, keep following and wait, because it's coming. The moments will come, and you'll know. Others of you, you are right in the thick of this right now. And you've been wrestling with this tension. You can't say yes to both you and Jesus. And so for you, this is like so real that you're sitting here going, this is creepy. I mean, because this is like exactly where you are in your life. And it's downright amazing that we're even talking about this right here, because you've got something in your life and something in your mind that just keeps flashing before you, and you know exactly what it is. And it's almost like Jesus wanted you here. It's almost like he's communicating with you. And if that's you, I just want to say maybe the tension that you feel is really a beautiful thing. Because this is a very legitimate opportunity to find out whose you are. Keep listening. Keep following. Let him guide you.